all been taught that our parents told us to not cross the road without looking first. Well, that doesn't just apply only on the road. That means we do things, everything, with a certain order. Now, we're here today because the state failed to do that. And because they did, the wrong man is in this courtroom today. You see, they rushed to a conclusion, and then they tried to piece together their story. But you'll see that their story is full of holes. And as much as they would like it to, it will not come together and make sense in the end. It's the morning of August 31st, 2012. Today, everyone had been waiting for, the day of the big lift. The whole construction team waits patiently for the scene to be cleared. Rains falling like previously forecasted. But upon conducting more than an hour-long site sweep, clearing a squatter off, obtaining approval from the crane supervisor, they proceed with the first lift at 10 a.m. The crane supervisor struggles a bit at first when the first big gust hits, but she still manages to complete it. As the second lift starts around 2:45 p.m., the winds pick up, but she still confirms that they will be able to complete the job. Then after a few minutes of lifting, the squatter appears again. So they stop and conduct an area examination, but fail to find the guy or anything except a missing fire axe. Everything goes well afterward until the crane collapses. And the roof crashes down, killing safety agent Grace Hopper and squatter Arthur Dent. The members of the jury, it is a fact that this is the only story that can be told here today with absolute certainty. Any other story told today will leave plenty of room for doubt. My name is Kaiel, and along with my co-counsel, Abigail Juarez and Elizabeth Whitmire, we have the privilege and the serious responsibility to represent the defendant, Tatum Zillias. Now, Tatum Zillias was a member of the community, a coworker, a friend, but he sits here wrongly accused for a crime that he did not commit. You see, the state is going to get up here and give you a heavy traffic of evidences to prove their case. But in reality, they're giving you nothing but a tiny handful of easily visible street signs. There's more to the evidence. There's more to the evidence than the mere bits of information that they will give you, that they will focus on. Members of the jury, facts do not cease to exist simply because they are ignored. Now, you just heard the state saying how they are convinced that Artie and Grace Hopper died because Tatum Zillias blindly ordered a construction crane to lift a load that's beyond its capacity. But members of the jury, you will learn that the state chose to ignore that the specified 2,750-ton capacity set at the 85% of maximum tolerance, rendering the 2,900 panel weight within the 3,235-ton limit. Now, you will hear from crane expert witness Micah Stratton and how she will testify how the crane has withstood loads of 3,000 tons several times in the past, and how they diligently conducted regular safety inspections and maintenance to prepare for the August 31st, 2012 big lift. Now, with that knowledge combined with the fact that the state glossed over the evidence, not even bothering to dig into the technical specifications and the capabilities of the machines through the authorities in the field, you will realize that the state had hastily jumped to conclusion to serve to you the story that they are bringing you today. The state will also present evidence trying to show that Tatum Zillias' conscious disregard for high risk of death or seriously bodily injury. But members of the jury, you will hear directly from Tatum Zillias, and you will learn that the state clearly failed to bring to light the area examinations that he proved for both lifts, including the unexpected quick sweep that he had to make a hard decision for. Out of his willingness to ensure safety, even when the crane operator expressed time insufficiency for it. You You will also learn that he made sure that he always consulted the crane operator about safety before making any big decisions on the day of the lift. The state will present evidence that will try to show that Tatum Zillias disregards the windy weather warning and he proceeded with the lift. My members of the jury, you will also learn that the state had chose to ignore the fact that Tatum Zillias did not proceed with the lifts without clearly consulting the crane operator, who even assured the lift and the load and wind that were both within the crane's 100% tolerance. They also chose to ignore that Tatum Zillias, being the most uncompromising about project deadlines, distinctly understood that the winds could destroy the temporary roofing and the water coming in would destroy weeks of work. Members of the jury, another overlooked evidence was Reese Dentner, a freelance newspaper writer who had the chance to speak to the victims moments before they passed away. Now, he will give you the trencher's heart, their deepest pains, and Artie Dent's open declaration of his master plan to take down the crane. And that while Tatum Zillias is an awful person, he is not a murderer. So when you listen to the evidence, pay close attention to what's missing in the state's case against Tatum Zillias. Because throughout the course of the proceeding, we will show you the holes that exist in the state's case are also the result of the malicious bias of one individual, Emerson Turkin. Emerson Turkin is going to take the stand right there today, and she's going to tell you how she decided from the get-go that Tatum Zillias is guilty, and how the spotlight is on him accordingly. And because Emerson did that, the state also chose to ignore the fact that Emerson Turkin's ego may have been bruised when Tatum Zillias ignored her recommendations. They argued and even chose the crane operator more than her site supervision, more than her being the site supervisor when it came to critical decisions on the project. As such, a vindictive judgment of Tatum Zillias' character would be inevitable for Emerson Turkin. You will also learn that the state chose to ignore the possibility that Emerson Turkin, enraging one or more of the squatters after Turkin lost her temper when they first met up, then being followed by the site vandalism and the mooring about the crane area. And you will also learn that the state chose to ignore the investigating of the missing tools, such as the fire axe and the wrench, and how they were found on the construction site, and strangely on one of the crane's gears. Lastly, you will discover that the state chose to ignore the squatter briefly reappearing before the lift started, the squatter poking around the machine, the crane collapsing completely, or how all that had never happened in the past. With all the evidence on their plate, you will learn that the state had cherry-picked the evidence how they would like it to be focused on. They picked and chose on pre-existing biases against Tatum Zillias. Members of the jury, listen closely today, because it will be clear that they can't understand what they didn't bother to investigate. And understand that it is the state with a burden today. A burden to prove that beyond reasonable doubt that it was in fact Tatum Zillias that murdered Grace Hopper and Arthur Dent. Well, that is a heavy burden, because you must be firmly convinced that Tatum Zillias murdered them. With all the holes that exist in the state's story, the unanswered questions that will leave you street scavenging for the truth, they will not be able to meet the burden, because your doubts are reasonable. They crossed the street before they looked, and because they did, the story was over for them long before it began. And an innocent man sits here before you today. And that is why, at the end of this trial, my co-counsel, Abigail Juarez, will come before you and ask you to deliver a verdict. A verdict that speaks the truth and will bring justice to this table. The verdict that finds the defendant, Tatum Zillias, not guilty, because he is not guilty.